It's hard to believe that DC Comics were the first of the comic companies to have successful films. Superman, released in 1978, was a huge hit, as was Batman, released in 1989, and both launched a series of successful films. However, at the turn of the century, Marvel Comics gained headway with the release of the X-Men series, and the 2008 release of Iron Man began the MCU's march to supremacy, culminating with the Avengers Endgame movie of 2019. Now, DC has made several attempts to match the success of Marvel, but has not been able to do so, with many high-priced flops that have lost money to the point where Warner Brothers has decided to reboot the entire movie universe, getting rid of the performers playing most major characters and even refusing to release movies that had almost been fully completed. There was supposed to be a Batgirl movie last year. It cost the studio $90 million, but it will not be released as the new executive felt that it would be better to take the tax write-off than to release a film that they knew was going to be a flop. However, in the midst of all this chaos and multiple failures came a surprise hit, 2019's Shazam. Shazam was a fun, straightforward, and non-pretentious superhero origin story that wound up being both a critical and commercial success. And this past weekend brought us the sequel, Shazam! Fury of the Gods. So is this another DC flop, or can it catch lightning in a bottle like the original? Well, before we answer that, let's talk a little about the plot. So our story begins in a museum where we find the broken wizard staff used to give the Shazam powers to our hero in the first film on display. Meanwhile, two of the daughters of the Titan Atlas, played by Helen Mirren and Lucy Liu, break into the museum to steal the staff. They do so, they take it to the imprisoned wizard from the first movie to have him repair it, and then they activate its power. We then go to Philadelphia, where Billy Batson and his family are attempting to live their lives as children and part-time superheroes. They are not having much success, however, since although they have helped, their many misdeeds and missteps have caused a lot of chaos, earning them the nickname the Philly Fiascos in the media. While Billy and his superhero siblings are struggling to work together and master their abilities, the Daughters of Atlas are bent on taking the powers for themselves. This leads to several confrontations, including a climactic battle scene which takes place in Citizens Bank Ballpark in Philadelphia. The main protagonist is once again played by Zachary Levi, playing Shazam, and Asher Angel playing his 17-year-old regular form of Billy Batson. In fact, with the exception of the oldest sibling, all of your actors and actresses from the first movie reprise their roles. Levi once again is great as Shazam, really playing the part of a teenager in an adult body convincingly, what with all the anxiety and nervousness that would come with that. But really, he pretty much played the same part in his TV show Chuck back in 2012, so this isn't much of a stretch for him, but I will admit to being a fan of his. With all the drama around DC, this movie has been released with very little fanfare, and is honestly not expected to be much of a hit. In fact, this movie, along with the upcoming Flash and the Aquaman sequel, are really leftovers from the previous administration at DC Warner Brothers, and I feel are only being released because they've already been completed. I had actually considered skipping this movie altogether, or at least waiting until it was streaming, but my kids enjoyed the first one so much that they really wanted to see it, so I figured, why not? Directed by Daniel Sandberg, who had previously directed the horror film Annabelle Creation, which is a really good horror film, by the way, and the first Shazam movie, does a fine job balancing out his large cast. And the running time of 2 hours and 10 minutes allows the story to progress and the action to keep you fairly engaged without feeling overbloated. The effects are pretty good, and my hometown of Philadelphia looks particularly lovely, especially Citizens Bank Park. So, final verdict. Is this film worth your time? Look, if you're looking for something new and original and different in the superhero genre, this isn't it. It's a pretty by-the-numbers sequel. But honestly, in a time period where our superhero movies have become bloated and weighed down with poor writing and ham fisted messaging, maybe a by the numbers superhero action film is not a bad thing. So let's give this film a solid 6 out of 10. It's not perfect, but it's fun, and if you like the first one, you will like this one as well. And even though effect-laden films like this do better on the big screen, feel free to wait for a quiet night at home when it hits the streaming services. Shazam is a film that may be worth your time, but not necessarily the cost of a ticket, a soda, and a snack. Although if you're like me, you sneak your snacks into the theater. You'd be surprised how much you could fit into the front pocket of a hoodie. Oh, and one more thing. As always, if you liked what you heard, click the like button, subscribe, leave a comment, and if you did not like what you heard, I thank you for listening anyway. See you next time.